We've got a couple of things on the docket for tonight. There's the status of the utility and the GRU wetlands plan to go through. So I think the first thing on the agenda is a roll call. And Robin, I'll let you do that.
Yes, sir, I will. I just want to, before I start, let everyone know that we are recording this meeting. It is not being broadcast or live streamed, but it is being recorded. Okay, so Member Wheeler, absent. Member Jacobson.
Here.
Member Miles, absent. Member Sterlingwood, absent. Member Rockwell.
Here.
Member Davis is absent. Member Crow.
Here.
Member Fultz.
Yeah, Jason's here. He's just not responding yet.
Okay. And Chair Porter.
I'm here.
All right.
Let's see. Sharing screen. I don't have the agenda right in front of me, but I think from memory, the next thing comes up is status of the utility.
Yes, sir. The state of the utility, and Dino DeLeo is going to stand in for Tom tonight.
My favorite part. All right, take it away, Dino.
Good afternoon, Chair, board members. Dino DeLeo, Energy Supply Officer. And as Robin said, I'm just filling in for Tom for the state of the utility. For the month of November, we had a good month from both the safety, compliance, and environmental. We had no recordable injuries, no collisions, and we had no regulatory or environmental issues through the month of November. From a outage standpoint, we had 73 power outages, 43 of those, over half of those related to vegetation, some of those related to animals. So about 2/3 of them related to either vegetation or rodents within the system. For water, wastewater, we had one sanitary sewer overflow. Again, another good month. For energy supply, the area I am in, coming out of the outage for the Deerhaven Renewable, we had some issues with a elevated temperature on a generator bearing. The bearing continued to creep up to the point where we actually shut the unit down on the 20th of November. Upon inspection of the unit on the 23rd November, we found the generator bearing was severely damaged. So we had to have that bearing repaired. Subsequent inspection revealed the other generator bearing had some minor damage, so we had both of those bearings repaired. As I speak today, 1800 tonight, DHR will be restored to service. So all the repairs have been done. It will come back online tonight and be running. But we've been in forced outage since the 20th of November. I'm also happy to report for Unit 8 at Kelly Generating Station, our new turbine, which came from Brazil, and our new generator, which came from Germany, have both arrived stateside and arrived in Gainesville and have been offloaded in Gainesville. So our major equipment is in the Kelly laydown yard, prepared for that outage, which begins at the end of January. That's all I have, subject to any questions.
All right, sounds good, Dino. Thanks for that report, and nice to see the equipment's here and ready to get going.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
All right. That leaves our next item, the big item for the night, the groundwater recharge wetland property purchase.
All right. Well, Mr. Chair and members, my name is Tony Cunningham. I am the water wastewater officer here at GRU. And we are going to do a presentation on the groundwater recharge wetland property purchase. With the ultimate recommendation to purchase a property. And as introduction, I just want to say a few things. One of which is we've been working pretty diligently the last almost year on doing due diligence on the property site, which you'll hear a little bit more about, also achieving a special exception permit for the site as well. And so we're at that point, which was the hurdles we wanted to get over before we recommended purchasing of the site. And so we're over those hurdles. We're going to discuss what kind of came out of those two activities, and then and share a little bit more about the project, and go from there. And so a couple words I just wanted to say is, one, in the water wastewater industry, very few times in your career do you get to do projects that people are excited about. So most of the projects you do in water wastewater are at remote plant sites that no one really knows about, or frankly underground that no one even sees. But periodically you get to do some pretty exciting projects, and this is one of those projects. It's also a project that just a broad stakeholder support for. So a lot of different folks, stakeholders from a lot of different perspectives are excited about the project as well. And so we are really excited to present that to you tonight. And so Kristen, I think you're going to share your screen and share the presentation. Is that correct?
That is. So just give me a second to get it up. Let's see.
So as Kristen's bringing that up, there we go. As you can see, again, groundwater recharge, wetland property purchase. If you can go to the next slide, Kristen.
Yeah, Tony, do you see it as presentation mode, or do you see it as presenter mode, where you kind of like see the next slide on the right?
It's
presentation.
presentation mode.
Oh, excellent. Okay, next slide.
So tonight, there's a number of folks that are on the call, on the Zoom call. Tonight, Rick and Kristen, which are two professional engineers in the water wastewater department, they'll be presenting the bulk of the presentation. But we have a number of folks that will be available to ask questions to and that are engaged in the call. Tiffany Davis is a land rights coordinator for GRU. So Tiffany is available, and she's obviously helping us with the land acquisition. Jay Norquist is principal engineer at GSE Engineering and Consulting. Led the efforts in really evaluating the geology and the sinkhole questions and things of that nature. So he'll be available to answer questions. Chris Keller, president of Wetland Solutions. We have a long-standing professional relationship with Mr. Keller and Wetland Solutions. They were partners with us on the Sweetwater Wetlands Park project as well. He is engaged. And then lastly, Jerry Diedenbach, CHW professional consultant. So Jerry has really helped shepherd us through the special exception process and will lead us toward the design process here in the future. So if you can go to the next slide, Kristen. This is a rendering of potentially what the site could look like. And I'm going to leave us at this point, and I'm going to turn it over to Rick Hutton for him to give you a lot more details on the project. But like I said, we are super excited about this project. We've got a really good team of folks that I just introduced that have been engaged with us for the last number of months, and will be with us as we move forward through the project. So Rick, if you could take it over from here, that'd be great.
Thank you very much, Tony. Next slide, please, Kristen. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, so I wanted to give you, Kristen's going to tell you a little more detail about the project, but I wanted to at least kind of give you an overview of, so why are we doing this? So kind of at a real high level, of course, GRU, we provide water service to customers in our area, serve about 200,000 people, which is about 3/4 of the Alachua County population. Also serve UF, Santa Fe College, and hospitals and the numerous businesses in our area, as well as educational institutions. So we, of course, receive wastewater back from most of those customers in our community. We collect, treat, and beneficially reuse that wastewater. And of course, our goals are to observe that triple bottom line. So we want to be sustainable both from an environmental, economic, and social perspective. So next slide, please. So we, like a lot of other communities in Florida, or really like all communities in Florida, have some water challenges. So we continue to grow, maybe not as quickly as some of the coastal areas, but we do expect to add about 20 to 25% population over the next 20 years. So that adds up to about 40 to 50,000 more people. As we add more customers, of course, we're going to have to increase our groundwater pumping to serve those customers. Also, those customers are going to generate more wastewater, which we're going to treat and have more reclaimed water, so more water to reuse. So in our area, of course, as I think most of you are aware, there's a lot of discussion and concern about Santa Fe River and associated springs and regional pumping impacts on river and spring flows. Also a lot of discussion about nutrient levels. And so what this project really allows us to do is, as we add more customers, this allows us to continue to minimize our environmental footprint. So we're able to use that additional reclaimed water to beneficially recharge the aquifer, which will offset the pumping that we have to do to serve our customers. So it's a really good thing from an environmental perspective to minimize our footprint. And also, as Kristen will discuss, there's also some regulatory requirements that are coming up called minimum flows and levels related to the Santa Fe River. So this is going to help us to meet some regulatory requirements that are related to our water supply permit. So it's both a really good environmental project, and also there's really a strong business reason as to why we want to do this project. Next slide, please. So this project really fits in with our water resource strategy that we've been using for a number of years. And of course, part of that is water conservation. You know, as we add more people, it's important that people be more efficient about the water they use. We, of course, work with our customers to help them, educate them and help them to conserve water. Also have to acknowledge a lot of work that's being done by a lot of other entities, like Alachua County has some excellent water conservation programs, as well as the water management districts. And a lot of citizens and environmental advocates have been really good at helping to spread the word of helping people to conserve water. So our customers have done actually a really good job over the last 10 years in particular in helping to reduce their water use. Of course, there's always more that can be done. So that's one part of our strategy. The other part is water reuse, as I'd mentioned. So we want to beneficially reuse all of that wastewater that comes to us that we treat. There's three kind of major ways in which we do that. So one of them is using that reclaimed water for irrigation. So we have about 1,000 or so customers that mainly in the Southwest area that use reclaimed water for irrigation in place of using groundwater. So that helps to minimize the amount of groundwater that's used for that. Another big use, of course, is environmental restoration. And of course, I always like to include our Sweetwater Wetlands project any chance I get. So that project essentially uses both reclaimed water and storm water. It treats that water through a natural, well, through a wetland system that we created that uses natural wetland processes to treat that water to very high quality. And then that water goes out on the Paynes Prairie and helps to restore the natural flow out onto the prairie. So the third major reuse we do is aquifer recharge. And one of the things that we've been pursuing a lot, particularly in the last 10 years, is the concept of using what we call aquifer recharge wetlands. So we treat that reclaimed water essentially to drink, well, we treat it to drinking water standards. It's actually a permit requirement. And we recharge the aquifer with reclaimed water. And as I mentioned, in doing that, you are directly offsetting the amount of water that we pump from the Florida aquifer to serve our customers. So next slide, please. So what is a groundwater recharge wetland? So this is kind of a schematic of one. I'm sorry, it's a little complicated, but I can kind of explain it at a high level. Natural wetlands normally are going to occur in an area where you have, where the geology includes clay layers that prevent that water from percolating into the ground. With a groundwater recharge wetland, we actually make a man-made wetland in an area where you have sandy soils where the water will actually percolate into the ground and recharge the aquifer. So the way this works is you essentially construct a basin. You add reclaimed water to that basin and maintain a constant level of about 12 to 18 inches. And that water, we actually meet drinking water standards with that water. And you plant natural wetland vegetation in that basin. And one of the things that what's really neat about these processes is that the wetland vegetation, the natural wetland processes that occur are able to reduce the nutrient levels of that water down to really, really low levels, and particularly nitrate, which is a constituent that's a concern in our area, well, statewide. They were able to get those nitrate levels down to very, very low levels. So you're able to recharge the aquifer with very high quality, very low nutrient water. And it's really a technology that's being recognized and used statewide as a way to help restore a lot of natural systems throughout the state. So next slide. So we've been operating these recharge wetlands for probably the last decade or so. This is a picture of one of our recharge wetlands. This is at the Kanapaha Middle School. So you can, if you want to go to the middle school, particularly after school hours, this is located right next to the parking lot. And the image to the left, that was a basin that originally was just a dry stormwater basin. And we worked with the school board, because it is on school property, and we're able to do is turn this into a recharge wetland that also receives reclaimed water, but also receives stormwater. And by putting that wetland vegetation in there, we're able to treat that stormwater as well as the reclaimed water to get the nutrients down to really, really low levels and recharge the aquifer. And as you can see, they're actually really pretty because they look just like natural wetlands. And bird life, really, birds have a way of finding wetlands, and so it's very popular for the birds too. This is a fairly small site. It's well, at the middle school, I think we've got about a total of about 1 to 2 acres of wetlands there, maybe 2 acres of wetlands there. So next slide, please. So this is a picture of the Ocala Wetland Recharge Park, which they recently opened within the last month, I believe. And this is a project, it's a 60-acre site. It's really at similar scale as to the project that we are talking about tonight. And that project is being funded jointly with the city of Ocala. Well, the city of Ocala is working with the St. John's Water Management District and the state, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. As a partnership, they are funding that project. And that project, the intention of that is to help improve the recharge and improve flows and reduce nutrients in Silver Springs. It's a really nice project. Also, there's a recharge wetland that Lake City recently constructed. Another project is being under design for the city of High Springs to do a recharge wetland there. Also, there's been some similar type wetlands have been in operation in Palm Beach County at Green Cay and Wakota-Hatchie wetlands for a number of years. And there's also a project that's being developed right now in Volusia County to help restore flows to Volusia Blue Springs. So it's an idea that has really kind of spread across the state. So I'm going to do is I'm going to hand off to Kristen, and she's going to tell you a little more of the details about our project.
Thank you, Rick. As Tony mentioned, we're really excited to be here today to share this project with you. I'm Kristen Seeley. I'm a utility engineer in water wastewater systems. So what I wanted to do was start at kind of a higher level about the background and the benefits of this particular project, and then go into a little bit more detail. And so the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and the Suwannee River and St. John River Water Management Districts, in partnership with multiple stakeholders, so local governments, water utilities, environmental groups, and others, created the North Florida Regional Water Supply Plan to look at our water supply needs as in our region, and also to ensure that our natural water resources are protected while we meet those future water supply needs. In addition to this, developing from the water supply plan, Alachua County and the city of Gainesville, we work together to develop the joint Alachua County, City of Gainesville 2018 to 2028 water supply facility work plan. And what that work plan is it looks at our water supply needs at a local level and ensures that we can meet those needs while also protecting natural resources. So this recharge wetland project is included in both of these plans. The boost in aquifer levels that the project will provide will help support flows, as Rick mentioned, in the Santa Fe and the Ichetucknee rivers and also their springs. And so with this regional benefit, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and the Sewanee River Water Management District are funding partners for the project, contributing up to 50% of project costs. We plan to do the project in phases. So this initial phase will recharge an average of 3 million gallons per day. It will create between 15 to 30 acres of wetland area to recharge this amount of water. The size of the wetland area will be determined by the percolation rates of the soil, and we'll be able to do some tests during the design phase of the project to really pin down what that wetland area will be. And then, over the next 20 years, we see the need to increase that wetland area to beneficially recharge up to 5 million gallons per day. And we anticipate that will create about 45 acres of wetland area in total. Okay. So now going into a little bit about the particulars of the project and the specifics. And so on your screen, you see a vicinity map of the project site. On the bottom left, we have a call out of Alachua County, and the project site is identified on there to help orient you where in the county the property is located. It's on the west side of Parker Road, immediately north of Diamond Sports Park, just west of the Oakmont subdivision. There were a few criteria that we were looking for when we were citing the wetland project. First we needed that sandy geology that Rick had talked about. So we know that, we had to be west of I-75 because that's where the sandy geology is within our county. In addition to being west of I-75 and kind of having that general criteria, we did a very comprehensive geotech investigation of the site to ensure that it had that sandy soil, because it can be pretty variable out here. And then also looking at sinkhole potential. And so everything indicated that the site has, in fact, the geology to support a recharge wetland. Let's see. Oh, the other thing that we were looking for was a site large enough to accommodate that wetland area. And so we were looking for a property that was between 75 to 100 acres in size. And this particular property is 75 acres. We also needed the site to be within a relatively close proximity to our existing reclaimed water infrastructure. So the areas shaded in purple on this map are where our customers use reclaimed water for landscape irrigation. And you can see there's purple lines within these shaded purple areas. Those are our pipes that deliver the water to our customers. And these pipes will be the same pipes that will convey the water to the project. And you can see there's some pipelines right across the street. We needed the site to be available for purchase, and this particular property was on the market and had a willing seller. And there was a few other things that we think make this a good candidate. It's in an area of Alachua County that, while there's many sports parks, there's not a lot of nature parks. And so we think, that this wetland can help fill that void. And then we also think that there's some really good synergy between some of the schools that are nearby the project site, similar to the Kanapa Middle School wetland, where the site can, or rather the school can use the wetland as a living laboratory. So we have the Oakmont Elementary School being built across the street, and then the school board owns Diamond Sports Park, and we've heard that they have plans for that site to be a future high school. So just recapping the environmental benefits, the project will reduce our community's environmental footprint. It provides that additional treatment or polishing that Rick talked about, reducing those nitrogen concentrations down to really low levels with minimal energy use. We like to say that it uses solar power, which it truly does. So very low energy. It replenishes the Floridan aquifer, which will support flows at the Santa Fe and Ichetucknee rivers and their springs. It creates valuable wetland habitat and increases the area's biodiversity as well. So as far as the project's anticipated schedule, pending City Commission approval, we plan to purchase the property in early calendar year 2021. We have funding secured from the state for the purchase of the property and also for the design and permitting. And we anticipate hearing in sometime in 2021 about funding for the construction of the project. And so with that notice, we'll solicit a design build team for the project. And so that's the delivery method where we hire a design firm and a contractor as a team, and they work collaboratively to really value engineer the project. So we'll solicit that design build team in 2021, and then move into design and permitting late 2021, and then begin construction in 2022. And then we expect the wetland to be fully operational by 2024. So the fiscal impact, the funds for the property purchase is included in the 2021 capital budget. As I mentioned, the next step is to solicit that design build team. And then the total estimated project cost, including the purchase of the property and the construction, ranges between $8 to $12 million. Again, some of that depends on the soil characteristics and how much wetland area we'll need to create for that recharge. And as I've mentioned, we expect for the state to contribute up to 50% of the project costs from DEP and the Suwannee River Water Management District. We've been engaging with the public about the project. We developed a fact sheet and a web page on the GRU website for folks to go and visit and learn more about the wetland. And it also has contact information in case folks want to hear a little bit more. They have my email address and they can reach out to me. We had a neighborhood workshop in July that was part of the zoning approval process that Tony talked about. With that neighborhood workshop, it was advertised in the Gainesville-Sun. It was a public workshop, and then also nearby property owners received direct mailers. And so we had pretty good attendance there, where we shared a presentation much like this with them and answered questions. Following that workshop, the Gainesville-Sun published a really nice informative article that Sunday. So it was a front page article on the Sunday newspaper. And then in November, we presented to the Alachua Audubon Society about the project. And then we had a couple public meetings for the zoning approval process. So we had the Alachua County Planning Commission, which neighbors were notified about that meeting. And then we had the Alachua County Board of County Commissioners. That was also a public meeting, both at the County Planning Commission. They recommended, unanimous recommendation for approval. And then at the County Board of County Commissions, they unanimously approved the zoning approval and had really nice comments about, the project and GRU being a good community partner. So that was great to hear their support for the project. So potential community benefits of the wetland. The way the wetland is designed, we'll have wetland cells. These wetland cells or basins, they're surrounded by berms to kind of hold that water there. And then on top of those berms, there's access roads essentially, or paths that are used for operating the wetland site, inspecting it, maintaining it. And so these paths can also be used for recreational purposes like walking or jogging or wildlife viewing. And so inherently the wetland will have some of those recreational benefits designed into it that will offer passive recreation, wildlife viewing, photo opportunities. We see that at Sweetwater, ecotourism attraction, again, very much like Sweetwater, and then the environmental education component that I touched on with the schools. GRU, we are not equipped to operate or fund or maintain enhanced public facilities. And so what I mean by that is like a bathroom facility or, boardwalks or maybe an education center or some type of ranger staffing. So we're here today and we'll be seeking direction from City Commission about enhanced public facilities and someone to help support those if that's what's desired. And so, some options or potential options for those enhanced public access facilities and management could be, approaching perhaps Alachua County Parks, City of Gainesville Parks and Recreation and Cultural Affairs, or possibly a partnership between multiple entities. And Tony will touch on that a little bit at the end too. And so what I'd like to leave you with is sharing this rendering again that Tony flashed up on the screen in the beginning of the presentation. Now that you have a little bit of background about, what the vision and what the purpose of the wetland park is. And so you can see here we have a series of wetland cells. These are shallow, about a foot to a foot and a half deep. As Rick mentioned, these wetland cells are planted with native wetland plants. Many are flowering and really pretty to go and look at. And then of course they create that wetland habitat that draws in, some really great wildlife. The wetland basins are, surrounded by the berms that have those pathways that can be used, of course, for the operation and maintenance, but also for recreational purposes. And this is my favorite rendering. This is one of an in-park view of what it might be like to go and visit the park and experience it and be within the park. And so, I can see some wildlife that's visiting because of the wetland habitat that was created. So I see birds and butterflies and dragonflies. And then I see a family visiting the park and some birders in the middle ground on that platform there. And then in the very back, I see, a person out for their daily jog. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Tony to close us out.
Excellent. Thanks, Kristen and Rick, for the presentation. I know, Chair Porter, that you all can't vote tonight, but this is the recommendation that we are taking to show you, and we're going to be taking to the City Commission in January. So I'm going to just read it, and then I do want to have a little discussion on the public access portion. So what we're really seeking is approval for both the purchase and sale agreements for the purchase of 2 properties located at 3400 block of Southwest 122nd Street from Mitcham Rivers LLC in a combined amount not to exceed $1.59 million plus closing costs as negotiated by staff. And then authorize the general manager or his designee to execute all documents necessary to complete the acquisition of the real property in accordance with the purchase and sale agreement, subject to approval by the city attorney as to form and legality. And then finally, provide guidance on potential funding and operations of public access. And so, we'd love to hear from the UAB members and hear, again, you can't vote, but just kind of hear what your thoughts and ideas are on the project. And then, when we do meet with the City Commission, we want to kind of have a little more robust conversation about the more enhanced public access type facilities, as well as operations of a more of a park-like operations. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Chair Porter, and you guys can provide comments or ask questions. As I said, we have a very qualified team of individuals that are on the Zoom call that can answer a whole host of questions as well.
Okay, thanks, Tony, and thanks for all the other GRU people who helped put this together. It was a nice presentation. I'll start the ball rolling. A couple of quick questions. Your nitrate limit in there below 0.5 milligrams per liter, is that, I mean, it's hard to ask that question because of we have no natural environment anymore, but is that below, is that around natural environment from years gone by?
Well, so I'm gonna have to give you a longer answer. So one of the things that there's a regulatory requirement that we will be required by the state to meet a total nitrogen concentration of 3 milligrams per liter. We feel like we're gonna be able to meet that and do way better than that. So as a design goal, we really want to get the nitrate down to as low as possible. There is what they call well, I guess the state's water quality criteria for springs is 0.35 at the springs, 0.35 milligrams per liter nitrogen. We don't have to meet that at the wetland because you do get some natural attenuation removal, before we're still like 20 or 30 miles from the springs. So we don't have to meet that at our project. But one of the things we, based on our operating experience with the other wetlands that we have operated and collected data on, we are able to meet that 0.5 milligrams per liter. So it's not really it's not a regulatory requirement. We don't have to meet that, but as a goal, we felt like, hey, because there's a lot of sensitivity and concern about nutrient levels, we'd like to get down as low as practically possible, and we feel like we can meet the 0.5 milligrams per liter. So that's perhaps not in a pristine natural environment with no man-made influence at all. Tell you the truth, I'm not sure exactly what level that would be. It would probably be less than that. It would probably be less than the 0.35 I mentioned. But that will actually get the water, the quality of our water going into the aquifer will be as good as or better than the water that's there now. Probably better.
All right, thanks, Rick. That's what I was looking for. The other question I had of a technical nature is what happens during a gully washer? Do you have this is all percolation, but do you have a natural 500-year storm outfall for this, or does it all go on site and you just stop all inflows?
So one of the things is, so this is not receiving any storm water other than maybe a little bit of storm water from the site, but it's not, one of the things when you're designing a a stormwater basin, you have to be worried about things like hurricanes and major flows because they're going to have a whole bunch of water coming to it. So this virtually all the water coming to this wetland is going to be pumped from our Kanapaha plant. And so one of the things that we do have at the Kanapaha plant, you know, this isn't our only method of using reclaimed water during high storm events. We have a discharge where we can discharge to Lake Kanapaha. So we're really not dependent on trying to push a lot of water out here during a storm. We would not need to do that. And we actually don't really have the pumping capacity to move, you know, really high volumes of water out here. So it's not really intended to be it won't be really affected much by wet weather.
Okay, last one, and that is there any residual chlorine left in this?
So we've got, there would be some, with our reclaimed water, it has residual chlorine in it as we're pumping it out. What we find in our other recharged wetlands is once you get that water into a wetland environment, that chlorine dissipates really quickly.
Yeah.
And so it really doesn't seem to fit within, I don't know, a few feet of where it comes in. So it gets dissipated pretty quickly once it gets in contact with the wetland vegetation.
Okay. All right. And I have to say, if it's the same crowd, and it sounds like it, that did the Sweetwater wetlands, that's just a fabulous piece of work there. I can't say enough about that piece of work. It's a park, it's a wetlands, it's an environmental wonderland. It's the snail kites there. I mean, you know, it's just wonderful. So if you're on the same page as that, then I think we're on a good mission there.
Well, I was part of that team, and we have several of folks that were involved. A lot of us were involved with that team, and so.
Well, that's our go-to place in this pandemic, and the new one out here by the ball field is only a couple miles from my house, so that'll be a lot shorter distance. So I hope we can. I would suggest talking to our new county commissioner Alford about breaking that into a park. She might be very attuned to that. That's all my questions and comments I have. I'd like to hear from the other board members. Barry, go ahead. I think you got your hand up.
I do. Thank you. Yeah, you know, it sounds like a really exciting project, and you know, glad to see you guys doing that, and hope to see that happen. Just a couple quick questions. Well, first to Wendell's question about the 0.5, going back to my watershed modeling days, that's a good number. Yeah, that's a good. If you can achieve that, that's great.
Okay, good.
Couple questions. What are we looking at per acre for that purchase of the land? You may have said that, and I apologize if I missed that.
So let's see. That was, I'm going to ask Tiffany to jump in, but so we're paying $1.59 million. And I should have those numbers right off the top of my head. Maybe Tiffany does, but it's 1.59
Well,
million.
and as Rick's doing the calculation, I will just reiterate too that the good thing about this is we're also, the partnership with Swanee River Water Management District is actually a 50% match on that. So they're bringing 50% of that cost, and then our GRU budget's bringing 50%. So
if I could interrupt here, Tony, or Rick, could you pull the screen down so I can see everybody?
Pull the screen down. Oh, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
That's better.
Yeah.
I can.
There's only so many times I can read the recommendation.
Hi, this is Tiffany Davis with the Real Estate Division at GRU. I'm happy to answer that question for you, member. It's roughly about, it's right at 21,200 per acre.
All right, thank you. So, and kind of a follow on to that. So how overall project cost, how would, and I don't know if you guys have the answer to this, how would this compare to more of a traditional system, non-wetland?
So when you say a traditional system, are you talking about like just what they call a RIB, a rapid infiltration basin? Is that what you're referring to? Or are you talking about like what's our other alternatives to use reclaimed water?
Oh, yes, that's a good question. I was just trying to think, you know, just comparing it to what else you might have done in its place if you hadn't been doing it well.
Well, I mean, it's a really good question, you know, and we didn't really emphasize a lot about cost analysis here, but so, you know, in looking forward as to, you know, what's the right thing to do with reclaimed water. And I mentioned earlier that, you know, one of the ways we use reclaimed water is for irrigation. And we have about 1,000 or so customers that use reclaimed water for irrigation. That type of use is a lot more expensive because essentially you have to build these high pressure pipes through neighborhoods. It is a lot more expensive than doing recharge wetlands. And so, you know, one of the benefits of this project is compared to other alternatives. If we were not going to do this project, we'd probably be saying, well, we're going to have to be a lot more aggressive at expanding, you know, where we put these reclaimed water piping systems. And one of the things that, you know, we recognize is that, wow, you know, that's expensive. It's not as efficient in terms of the benefit, because here we're directly putting the water back in the aquifer. When you use it for irrigation, you lose some of the water through evaporation. And one of the things, and I think the county's kind of keyed in on this too, is well, wouldn't it be better to just try to get people to irrigate less so you don't waste as much water, and instead take this water that you've got, treat it to high standards, put it back in the natural system, and, you know, sort of complete the water cycle. So it's actually very cost effective compared to, you know, our other alternatives.
Yeah, and that's, I guess that's where I was going. I assumed that was going to be your answer. And that's what's so great about these projects. You get this beautiful wetland, great facility, and you're saving money. So sounds good.
Yeah. So Barry, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think the short answer of what Rick was getting to is it's the least cost option, probably the best environmentally beneficial option, and also helps with long-term water supply in our region. And so, yeah, another way to say it is slam dunk, maybe.
Well, hey, if I can interject there, Tony, with everyone, you know, doing group hugs and kumbayas and doing all this stuff. The downside to all this, and people need to be aware of it, I have to make people, every time we get into these meetings, I mean, you know, capital expenditures of $8 to $10 million, even if it's being absorbed, you know, through the water district, you know, comes with rate impacts. And, you know, from 2022 to 2027, you know, we're looking at some significant wastewater rate impacts, if I'm not mistaken, as Tony, through your system. And I think it's 5% a year. So as we all sit around here and say, yeah, this is great, this is the way to go, that's this, there's going to be another meeting that we hold annually. It's before the city commission, and we go in before them and say, hey, we need a 5% increase in the wastewater rates. And they go, are you crazy? And we say, well, we're doing all these good things. We went through the UAB, we've done all these kind of things. So be aware that this is exactly, not that this is exactly what I want to do. I think the guys have done, and ladies have done a great job with this, but it's at these moments where we make these decisions and don't literally talk about the financial consequences of it in terms of the rates that, you know, there's a difference, there's this disconnect between what we do and what the public perceives. And I just have to say that, given that we're going into budget season, we're going to be looking at a utility that is still strained in terms of what it can do, mostly on the power side and on the GRUCOM side. One of our healthier systems is wastewater and water, as well as gas. You know, so just so it's out there, these are the kind of discussions that will have consequences later.
Well, Ed, let me chime in. I would venture to guess that your 5% rate increase on wastewater, this project is not the bulk of that increase.
I don't know that that's true. I think that in 2022, having the capital expenditures, you know, it's a fairly small system. So when you have your share of $8 to $10 million in CapEx,
yeah,
it's somewhere in the order of $2 million on the electric side drives a 1% rate increase. If I'm not mistaken, it's somewhere, you know, around $250,000, $300,000 on the wastewater side. So capital expenditures and have dramatic impacts. Not that it isn't the right thing to do,
Right.
but we need to be able to say, this is the right thing to do. This is the reason for the increases, because we're doing wonderful things. I mean,
Right.
this is really, there's not a lot of utilities out there that are taking these kind of steps to do this dramatic. I consider it dramatic. I think it's progressive. I think it's wonderful for our community. It's what the community wants. But, you know, there's competing interests that go on here. And the rest of the community, when it comes time to look at the rates, they don't want to pay for something that has done
Yeah.
a great thing.
So
And
I'll speak to that a little bit. So in wastewater for capital expenditures, it's $7 million is a 1% rate impact. This project will be primarily funded through connection charges because it is future capacity for the disposal capacity for the wastewater system. And so for capacity related projects, you fund that through new development, which is funded through connection charges. But yeah, every dollar we spend absolutely has an impact. That is why we vet these projects so intensely and get to a point of like a project like this, which is extremely cost effective way for future disposal, and grant funding from the Water Management District to help facilitate that as well. And so, you know, like Ed said, we have a very big responsibility and stewards of the revenues that we have. But this is an example of really good stewardship and doing a project that does that. And I think the other thing to touch on, and the reason why the last part of the recommendation is what it is as part of that, we are building what we really need to help continue to serve wastewater in the community. If we want to do more enhanced public access, like we experience at Sweetwater Wetlands Park, that's where we're looking for, okay, how are we going to do that? Who is going to come in with both capital dollars to build additional facilities like bathrooms and boardwalks and things like that? And what entity will come alongside us to operate those facilities going forward, as not as part of the utility system, but as a part of a parks and recreation or something of that nature.
All right.
That's
Thanks,
great, Tony.
Tony.
Thanks
if I
for
could just
thanks for that.
Yeah, go ahead, Barry, and then Fletcher, and then I want to hear from Tim.
Yeah, just to finish that thought, and that's, I guess, kind of where I was going to Ed's point my suggestion would be to kind of start with, you know, this is one option. Here are the cost of other options. Really, doing nothing is not an option. So this is the least expensive option, and then talk about ancillary benefits and go, look, this is our best option, and it does all these other things. But to have looked at other options to say, this is just flat out the cheapest thing we could do. Yes, there's a rate impact increase, but yeah, nothing wasn't one of our options.
Right. Good point. Good point. Fletcher, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My question's probably going to sound kind of simplistic. Sorry about that. I'm very sensitive to what Ed is saying about the capital expense, but I tried to read all the materials that were sent to us on the UAB before this meeting tonight, and there was one big question mark that I had that wasn't really answered. At least I didn't find in the material that I read the answer. What is the current status with the wastewater from the Kanapaha system? What happens to that? Tony just used the word future a minute ago. Are we looking at something that isn't particularly major now, but will become future with growth of population, growth of housing in that area or something? What, in other words, if you want to avoid the capital outlay, you could do nothing. What would be the impact of doing nothing, and what would happen to that wastewater?
Yeah, so great question. So currently, Fletcher, we have, so what happens is we collect all the wastewater from our customers, we treat that wastewater drinking water standards, and then it goes a couple of different places. One, we have recharge wells where it recharges the Florida aquifer with the current water. We also have other treatment wetlands that the water goes to, the reclaimed water goes to, and then we also have irrigation. And so what this is as you described, is for as we add future flow to the treatment plant, we need additional treatment, or we need additional disposal capacity that we don't currently have. So we're going to be reaching the end of our current of our disposal capacity. As we reach the end of that capacity, we need additional places to go with that water. And as Rick was saying earlier, we evaluated what those different things are, like additional irrigation. The wetlands are really that, again, least cost option for that future disposal capacity that we need at our plant. So our plant has a certain capacity, but the disposal capacity is a little bit less than the plant capacity. And so we're bringing up the disposal capacity so that it has enough capacity to meet all of the treatment from the plant.
I don't remember reading that material and the stuff I was given. And if it's not there and you're trying to sell this project to others, I'd simply recommend that you guys boost it up a little bit and put that part in. I think it's a missing link in the chain here, what we may want to look at. I have a couple other really quick questions. Where is this lot located vis-a-vis the proposed solar installation on Parker Road?
Other end.
So Ed, I might need you. I think the solar installation is south of here.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, it is.
So
That
It
is
is.
correct.
So
Yeah, the exact location is being held, and I guess anonymous to protect the innocent or whatever they say.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. You mentioned that in the future you can get it up to 5 million gallons per day. Give me an idea of what that means. I mean, how many gallons per day does, say, the system draw every day on average, or what is it disposing of now, or what does that mean in terms of improved flow at Itchinduckney Springs or whatever? What is 5 gallons per day?
Rick, I might have you jump in on part of that. So our current average treatment is around 17 million gallons per day. And so building out to 5 is quite a bit of additional capacity. And what's nice about the wetland system is if we purchase this property and we begin, we don't have to build all that capacity today. We can incrementally add that capacity over time, but we do need the land all at one time to be able to move toward that future capacity. And so, so again, we're around 17 million gallons. That's an additional 5. Rick, what I was going to ask you is, projecting out, how far out does that get us in terms of future growth? Like how many years out into the future?
So particularly, this is at the Kanapaha plant. So the Kanapaha plant, we use the water at Kanapaha in 3 different ways. As I kind of mentioned, we have these recharge wells that have a permitted limit on how much you can put down them. It's 10 million gallons per day. We're now discharging about, on an annual average, about 8 million gallons per day. So, and then I mentioned too, we have, some irrigation customers that use about 1.4 million gallons per day. And then we have some other recharge projects that are about, 1.2 or so million gallons per day, if you add them all up. But, one of the concerns would be as well, okay, so we can't, our reclaim, if we want to, as we continue to grow, we have to, we're going to, of course, generate more reclaimed water at the Kanapaha plant. We have a limit of 10 million gallons per day. We're producing about 8. We've got about a 2 million gallon per day capacity, excess right now. But, over the next 10 years, if we were to not do anything, we would become at risk, particularly if you have, when you have a wet year, that we would exceed that permit limit. So within the next 10 years, if we were to do nothing, we could reach a point where we have to have a building moratorium.
Well, to me, as a non-engineer on this, 5 out of 17 sounds like a major whack. I mean, that's, almost a third, maybe 30% or something. That's a major contribution, sounds to me.
Well, it is. So over the next, that's why we are starting out saying, well, we only need 3 initially, but, we're thinking way ahead. And particularly when you're talking about buying property, you want to make sure that, you're, not being short-sighted. So, hopefully with the ability to expand, that means the site will take us out way beyond 20 years.
Yeah.
So
I just have
30 years.
one more quick question. I know you had public hearings and so forth, and we all read the front page of the newspaper, and we know about a lot of hearings on this sort of thing in that area of the county where things have gotten pretty hot and heavy. What was the general drift of the conversation at that public hearing, and what about some of the other conservation groups like say the Springs Institute, or the ACT or the Audubon Society or so forth? What are they on record as stating about this?
So
Go ahead, Rick.
we've,
Sorry.
oh, I'm sorry, Tony.
Yeah, you go ahead. You go ahead.
So we particularly reached out to Audubon, and they are extremely supportive of the project. They're very excited about it. They advocated for the project at the Planning Commission meeting and at the Alachua County Board of County Commissioner meeting. Also, we talked to Bob Knight, who, as you know, is the director of the Springs Institute, and Bob has spoken out at a few different venues and did speak on behalf of the project at our county commission meeting as well. So very well supported by the environmental community. I think they see it, as we've said, it's really part of our effort to help. In addition to being a good business case for us, it really does help support, Santa Fe River spring flows. And, with the fact that we're able to get the nutrients down to really low levels is a big benefit too. So I think it's pretty well endorsed by the environmental community.
Well, if Bob Knight's for it, I'm for it, I can tell you.
Excuse me. Yeah, Tim, how about you? You got any comments tonight?
Hi. Yeah. Just everybody else covered the questions and stuff. My area of interest that's left is still in the potential for this to be used as a park. And that's kind of my questions and comments center around that. I think there are really great nature, scenic, and even educational opportunities that could go along with this. I'm pretty sure Sweetwater charges an entry fee. That there's a box there that people can, I don't know if it's donation based or if you're supposed to put money in, but you could definitely potentially do something like that. I'm also thinking about, and I don't know how doable this is, but a partnership between the city and the county, their parks and recreation departments, because while this is going to be in the county, a lot of city residents could potentially get usage out of this for recreational, passive recreation. Touching on the money side of it, you could always ask the city commission to carve out a little budget from the general fund transfer to maybe pay for some of these improvements and maintenance of facilities on the site. I guess my only question is, what kind of potential? I'll be honest with you, I'm not real familiar with I know we have a lot of trails, hiking and biking trails in Alachua County. I don't use them a lot myself, so I'm not real familiar with them. And this particular site, unfortunately, is a little out of the way, but I'm interested in the potential to, connect to the larger trail network with this. It would be great if we could somehow acquire the Hickory Sink just to the southeast and convert that to a park, and then you're basically connected to Hale Plantation. There's all sorts of, of course, roads already in there, but that now I'm just sort of talking pipe dream. But anyway, those are my thoughts that I've just been scribbling down as I've been listening. But I definitely would make a recommendation that the city and the county both entertain the potential of this as a destination. There's the Diamond Sports Park right next door that has a large parking area. I don't know if they're busy year round, but you know, you could obviously connect to them, maybe work out some sort of shared parking arrangement. I don't know, just spitballing here. But those are my thoughts. I think this is a great thing, and does have a lot of potential to be a benefit to the public. And when I say educational, I don't mean just nature, but you know, helping people understand what this facility is, what it does, and the importance of it in terms of returning water back to the aquifer that we're pumping out every day, because you know it's not infinite. So you know, making people understand what it's doing and why it plays a role in their rates going up, I think is a critical element as well. That's about all I got.
All right, thanks, Tim. As Member Wheeler always jokes about me in the background, fiddling around with my calculator, at the cost of this facility split between the water management districts with a 30-year life and a flow rate of average 5 million gallons a day, with a cost of $5 million for us, it works out to, I think, about 1/100th of a penny per gallon over the 30 years. So a pretty good deal. So really an immensely good deal. And again, it's only a couple of miles from my house. So as a park destination, I'm all for that. And I will reiterate again, I'll throw our new County Commissioner, Mary Alford, under the bus and say, I think we should all talk to her about turning this into a destination park. So I think we've heard from most of our members. Member Foltz is on listening only. He's proctoring exam tonight. So he will not pitch in on here, but we're not supposed to vote or anything, but I will make a grand statement that I didn't think I heard anybody with any concerns about this going forward. So I think a general consensus, at least everybody's gathered that from the conversation here. Barry, do you have a comment on that? Nope. Okay, good. Oh, thumbs up, thumbs up. Yeah, right. Okay, so I think that's all the further we can take that at this point in time. Wonderful presentation. Again, I have to say, from the group that brought us the Sweetwater Park, if this is going to be the same thing, it's going to be absolutely outstanding. So that's my 2 cents worth, or my 100th of a penny worth. All right.
All I'll say, Chair Porter, is that we're providing the foundation. The public access will be provided by those that you petition at the county
Yes.
and the city.
Well, I think I did, and I'll do it a third time. I did throw Mary Alford under the bus a couple times here. We'll keep going on that route. She knows us well over here. She just sat in these chairs, so I guess that's a pretty clear path right there.
And if I would, you know, since you're really kind of done with us, I will respond to what Mr. Rockwell said in terms of making a reduction in the GFT, and you all kind of chuckled a little bit. You may not have to chuckle any longer, because we've reached the point with the GFT that we have to do something as a utility. You know, we're using a consultant right now to look at what the formula should be in an MOU between general government and GRU. And quite frankly, you know, it needs to be based on what GRU can pay.
Yeah.
And some of the early analysis that we've done in projecting forward, you ought to know these numbers. You know, through 2019, from 2003 to 2019, GRU has remitted $48 million above its earnings to general government in general fund transfer. With the refinancing in 2019, that literally shifted debt service from 2019 through 2025 into 2026 and beyond. That means through 2027, GRU will have paid $118 million more in general fund transfer than in what it earned. So it's not something that I believe that the UAB ought to sit on the sidelines with any longer. You know, this is something that the GRU is confronting every day in terms of its rates. That's why I brought up rates along with you. It's going to be something that the city commission has to take up very shortly.
Well, Ed, I totally agree. And I think that based on our energy policy, we actually put that in our comments in there, that it should be a formula-based calculation. So we've already gone that route as a UAB into supporting that line of thinking.
And I concur. And when somebody says take it as a reduction in the GFT, feel free to vote on that when it is not a workshop.
That's correct. That's correct. But again, just to keep the happy nature of this meeting, this is yeah, a wonderful project and a great presentation. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you
very
all.
much.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, now we have one more item on our board, but the rest of our staff don't need to sit here and listen to that. So if you need to go, have a good evening and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, let me see if I can
Thanks,
get.
Tony and team.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next thing we had was this requirement of an annual report. I did get a comment from Member Wheeler. He couldn't be here tonight. Before I read that, in way of explanation, I went back and read the email. The email is a general requirement for all boards. It's not directed to the UAB. It's for all boards. It's basically just a status memo. That's all they want is a status memo. Now, you know, I hate bringing this up without Member Wheeler here, but he did send this along as a comment. So because I don't think he caught that part of the original request, he wrote, I'm not comfortable with and feel it's highly inappropriate for us to throw a few comments together as a UAB report back to the city commission. It's particularly galling when so many of us have worked so long and hard on the policy plan, appears to have been consigned to an infinite purgatory of staff review. And many of us will not be able to participate in this discussion because of the hasty last minute rescheduled holiday workshop. This proposed throw together approach actually comes across as a slight to UAB members and the importance of the board advising the city commission. Although I won't be able to participate, I'm submitting these comments to suggest we send no memo to the city commission. We state instead that our policy plan is our statement memo and leave it at that. Again, I think I understand Member Wheeler's irritation and frustration at some of these larger issues, but I think this request for a status memo from the city is not that. So with all due respect to Member Wheeler, basically what they wanted from the annual statement was first a mission statement, what they think our mission statement of the board is. I think we already have one of those. So that's just basically repeating. For the 2019-2020 period, they wanted the top 3 things that we thought we did during that time frame, and hold on to that a minute. And for what they wanted from us, what we thought we would be working on really important right now. And let's see, I had some notes on here and I don't have a final statement. What they could do to get the UAB known better to them. My comment to that was, I think the city commission knows all of us pretty well. I don't think they need to know us any better as a group, maybe some of the newer members, but as a group, no. But it seemed like a pretty straightforward document. I'm willing to write this up since it's not immediate and it is over the slight break I will get, but in the classwork at UF, the biggest thing that I thought we should discuss tonight is the 3 top things we've done in the last 2 years. Now, I'll just throw it out there. The top 3 things that I think we've done is produce the energy policy, get the approval started and get the project started for the PV input to GRU, and also shepherd through some significant refinancing. Those are my top 3, but entertain comments and from anybody else if there's a different level. I'm sure I'm forgetting something because we've done a lot in the last couple of years. Comments, queries, posers?
The biggest thing
Sounds good to me.
not COVID.
Yeah, right. The board's kind of sitting on the sidelines on that. We don't have a whole lot to do on that. Just getting through that is right. You are right. I got a thumbs up from Barry. Tim, you got any other insights to that?
Those were going to be my three choices.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everything we do is important, but those would
Yeah.
be the big ones.
Yeah, and I remembered the other thing I want to know is what they could do. What would be the important things going forward. Also, we said they asked what the three things we did in the past. What are the three most important going forward? My comments on that were rolling out the energy policy to the public. That's hugely important. The other one was to explore renewable energy plans for the future. And also the get back and start up the conversation with the interconnect issues within the state, specifically with FP&L. Those would be my three top going forward. Anybody else got any comments on that? Fletcher, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I have a comment. I think everybody that's on the call right now will remember that in the last, say, half dozen meetings, we've talked a number of times about the integrated resource plan. We've been talking about scheduling it now many times. And it seems to me that the one really big 900-pound gorilla that's sitting on our backs is this whole future 10-year site plan with meeting the goals of renewable energy for 2045. And since we talked about that, Biden's been elected and he's talking about electric utilities moving to 100% renewable by 2035. So that is an enormous undertaking that's going to have very far-reaching consequences. And so I think that UAB has got to address that sooner rather than later. And I think that will be the one thing that will really define who we are and what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that was my second item for important things of the future, and that's explore new plans to become more renewable. And that wraps up all the other parts of making sausage that you don't really want to see, but we're stuck with doing. So I tried to make it a light overall statement rather than getting into the difficulties with a report to the city commission.
A lot of
I
sausage.
totally agree, Fletcher. Absolutely. All right. So I guess I would throw myself under the bus and put this together. I would suggest that it's going to be no more than a page. They're just as busy as we are. They don't want to read a tome. Unlike my speaking, they always warn you at the university, never ask a professor to speak. They speak in 50-minute blocks. Writing is entirely different. I like to keep it at a one page. So I'll hack that together with that.
Wendell?
Yeah.
I served on another advisory committee earlier, which was the City Beautification Board, which really certainly isn't the UAB, but I would say that we went through this exercise sometimes, and there are model reports from these advisory committees. And I would recommend very strongly that you just talk to somebody and get 2 or 3 models that you can write against, and they kind of show what the commissioners sort of expect to receive, or the format, the look and feel, the voice of what other committees are actually reporting, the way they're doing.
That's an excellent idea, Fletcher. I always like to have a go by. What's that old thinking? Don't hide your eyes, just plagiarize. But anyway, having a go by is always a lot of help. So I'll certainly look into it. I'll probably just contact one of the city commissioners directly and say if they've already got a report and what it looks like, if they could share that with me, and I'll go with that. Thank you. Yeah, I that was our only other item on the list. We have member comments. Anybody have anything to wrap up with?
Just to go back to the recharge area for half a second, what agency or organization actually manages the user services for Sweetwater now currently?
That's a city park, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It's a city park, and that's what it would have to be, because GRU does not run parks, you know. And again, you really do have to have another organization come in and take over the top part of the program, so to speak.
So when you see a ranger, you see a guy on a little ATV or something. That is a
Yep.
city employee then.
You got it. Yeah, very good people too. I really can't say enough good things about that.
That's
And
a
that was
wonderful.
a mess. That was an absolute mess. That's the old depot. All the ground was a brown field, polluted as all get out. It was an absolute mess. And now it's a jewel of the city. So again, hats off to everybody that worked on that.
Yeah, it's terrific.
Yeah.
You know, if I can interrupt here, Wendell, you were asking for some other things. If all the other folks in the group have talked,
Oh
I'll
yeah.
wait.
No, go ahead, Ed.
When you mentioned some of the important things that you're looking at, I did notice that, you know, you talked about the energy policy implementation, you know, the renewable and the transmission plan. You know, I see Tom Brown is on the line here. He came in a little bit late, but you know, the one thing that I did mention, and I don't know if you can consider that just part of the energy policy implementation, but you know, part of the reason I mentioned the GFT is that that is an item that is pivotal in us. You know, we can get it formulaic, but it doesn't mean that the commission will agree to that formula or agree to what we believe is a pretty dramatic reduction in that general fund transfer based on the finances that we're showing there. And, you know, when I gave an update to the city commission on our economic outlook, I mean, one of the things that I talked about is that we have competing goals.
Mhm.
We have a financial structure for GRU that's supported by certain elements. And we're moving forward kind of hampered by the things that have been done in the past and expecting that we can move freely into the future. So when you talk about the goal of 25 renewable, 100% renewable by 2045, right now we don't even know the technology that will get us there. We've maxed out on the solar that we can put on our system right now. And for us to design a plan that's going to get us there by 2045, you know, it's better later than sooner when you start talking about what you're going to go down and do. One of the things that we've done, and we're going to be bringing it back to the UAB. By the way, Fletcher, we're going to be bringing back the discussion in January about the IRP and the 10-year site plan, give you a full understanding of how that works and how it fits into our plans and what it means to us, as well as looking into the future of the utility. But given the amount of the GFPT that we pay, given the rate ceiling that we have within the utility, given the debt structure, I mean, we've worked with our financial analysts or advisors, I'm sorry, to, you know, what that would entail in terms of layering in a move toward renewable now and what impact that would have on rates, even if we had, you know, some of the technology. And we're just seeing at, you know, we're talking about a 60-70% increase in rates.
Well, Ed, let's not get into that right now. What we want to do is take a look at the fact that in a long-term type of situation, you've got to plan ahead on one side on this goal that the city has. On the other side, you have a near-term problem with the GFT. You can't actually have the city be unaware of their colliding interests. So I think the best thing we can do is actually plan ahead for that and show the city commission that's not doable at all under the current financial arrangements. So I don't want to leave one side alone just because it's difficult right now. And plans are not really costs until you actually pull the trigger. So um, I understand where you're coming from. I understand fully, probably more than you care to imagine. But the fact is, that's the goal of the city. And we're in this crunch. So let's work them in detail. We already have the thought process of bringing the GFT to the city in detail and have you have a consultant there that's going to bring some plans forward. We're going to work that one. And that is probably the linchpin that moves everything. But at the same time, I'm not going to stop thinking about the future just because we got that monstrosity of an elephant in the room right with us right now. So,
but we aren't, Chair Porter, we're not thinking about it. It's been part of our ARP. We've looked, you know, we implemented certainly the solar PPA with the idea we could modular, increase it with modular components. So we are doing that. And I just don't want there to be the idea that we're not, because
Oh,
this is
I
part of
know
what we do.
that's absolutely. We are well aware of that, and I can't tell you how many times I told people in the county, what's GRU doing for renewable energy? Just sign a contract for 50 megawatts.
Well, it's
Really?
funny because we gave a presentation to that climate, I can't remember the name of
Yeah,
the board. It
climate
goes
board.
on
Yeah.
like, we gave the presentation, we talked about, the CO2 levels falling from, in our generation from 2011 to 2 million tons a year to just over 1 million tons. And when we make the conversion from DH2, to dual fueling, we could see that drop down to 600, 500,000 tons. We will have seen a 70% reduction in CO2 production, at GRU. Hooray! Let's have a 3 second or 1 second celebration. I mean, that's incredible. There's no other utility that's been able to do that. Yet we're forming new and more committees that are asking why we're not doing more. And so I guess what you're feeling is a little bit more of some of my frustration with.
I understand, Ed, but I've been trying to sell energy efficiency and renewable energy for 40 years. So I think I've been working on the frustration level for a long time.
Chair Porter.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
If I may just interject, because I actually was going to say this earlier and hesitated, and this might, I think this might sort of bridge the gap between the conversation you two are having right now. But I was going to say in your annual report, it could fall under any of those last 3 bullet points in the memo from the City Commission. What are the 3 most important things your board is working on right now, or more appropriately, what could the City Commission do to help your board better serve our neighbors, or what else do you need the City Commission to know about your board? I think it would be totally appropriate to include a bullet point in your report that says that the UAB is aware of the financial strain that GRU is under, and that the fact that the GFT contributes to that, and that we would like to initiate or have discussions about that. And I know it's tough because the City Commission.
No, Tim, that's an excellent suggestion. I really appreciate that.
I think that's a great way to sort of sneak it in and let them know that hey, this is something we're looking at and thinking about and needs to be talked about.
Could I put it in every bullet point? I mean, seriously, it's an untenable situation. And how untenable it is if you look in past performance, if they hadn't gotten to the point where they'd forgotten that they had to actually balance the books, the 2003 to 2019, $48 million comes right at $3 million a year. Now, $3 million a year is not an untenable amount of money to somehow balance. $48 million in the hole over a long period of time is. So if we'd have fixed this problem years ago, we wouldn't be in this friggin' mess. And so to continue on this road is just unconscionable. So I think that is a good point, Tim, and I will put it everywhere where I think possible, sort of like Christmas ornaments on every branch of the tree.
Be sure to send us a draft that's editable before you send it out to all the commissioners.
Right. Robin, how am I supposed to do that?
To send a draft out for the board to look at, you can send that to me and I can share it. And then when we do the final draft, I'll need to have that back so I can put it on the City Commission agenda.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Chair Porter. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Ed. There's no way around it. There's no way around this issue. It's going to come to a head. It has to come to a head.
And I think it's the kind of thing that if we don't keep bringing it up and push it, nobody else is going to.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Thanks, Tim. Okay, I think that's about it for tonight. We all had our member comments. Robin, you had something more to add?
Just a couple quick little housekeeping things. Next week on the 22nd, you have your standing monthly workshop. I assume you will want to cancel that, or
December 22nd. Yes, I will.
Okay, so we'll do that. And then on January 26th, which would be your January standing workshop, the commission wants to have a joint meeting. That'll be your quarterly meeting that you have with them. So.
Right. And is that a workshop or is it actual a meeting?
Well, it'll be a joint meeting. I think it probably,
But it's not a joint public, it's a joint workshop meeting, right?
you know, I'm not real sure. I'll have to check on that and.
Yeah.
let you
I
guys-
think it is, Robin.
Yeah.
the workshop. Okay. Well, I
And
think
what date is that?
it's,
The 26th.
January 26th. I'll have to, I think it will depend on what you decide to put on the agenda, whether you're asking them something that will need action. And I
Right.
know that under this new, this coming year, what they're going to want to do is have you as the chair or whoever will be chair at that time to meet with the mayor briefly beforehand to talk about the agenda and what you want to discuss.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay. All right.
okay, that's all I had.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for attending and thanks for the lively discussion. And Ed, please pass on to everybody else at the GRU and the consultants and engineers the fine job they did. And I appreciate all their answers and the presentation.
Oh, one more thing, I'm sorry. You just reminded me, although you all were not able to vote tonight, if you choose to just drop a line to the commission and say, hey, we heard this presentation, we're in favor of it, you're welcome to do that as individuals.
Right.
So,
And so I could do that, go directly to the mayor and send him an email.
yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll be more than happy to do that.
All right. And that, I promise that's it.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. And that's it for me. I think we can all get out of here tonight.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thank
Happy
you.
holidays, happy Hanukkah,
Yep. Yep. Thank
happy
you.
New Year.
Yep. All of them.
And yeah,
You guys.
See you, Tim.
bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.